Good day everyone and welcome to Backstage. We are back again with a new episode and a cool interview. But before I introduce it, I would like to thank you all for all the support and all the good words received recently. It's really much appreciated. If you like what we are doing, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel. Now back to the interview. For the episode of today, I've met a really amazing guy. He has been working for years for AAA games companies and has then decided to stop everything and create his own company to develop his own game. We have been talking about his career, we have been talking about the transition from AAA development to indie development, and of course, we have discussed a lot about the game. My guest of the day is Joe Winter, and the game is Song of Iron. Hi Joe, how is it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me as well. I'm very pleased to have you because since we have seen the game for the first time, it looks really as amazing, stunning, and but we don't know so much about it yet, and I hope we'll learn a bit more about it during this interview.
Yeah, thank you.
But
It's been fun.
yes. But before we start and we deep dive into the game, I would like to know more about Joe as the player and as the developer. So can I ask you first to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about how you've started playing and how you've decided to go to game developer career?
Yeah, sure. I'm Joe Winter. I've been in the gaming industry for coming on 15 years now. I was an animator until I left my last job to start or to get going on Song of Iron. So it's been a long game development history for me. But I started playing, I think my first real game was Mega Man X. It's probably the first one that I was sort of old enough to really understand that it was a good game and play through it and finish it and all that kind of stuff. So I remember that one very fondly. There was Ataris and, little bits of this and that, but that was the game I remember as like kicking me off, I guess. But yeah, I went to school for game design. If you could call it school, it was sort of like one of those like game colleges, but really I kind of learned on the job. I really attached myself to animation. I really enjoy it. And I worked in the industry for, I think it's probably like 13 plus years as an animator. I worked on Big Buck Hunter, which is an arcade game. I then moved to do some MMO games like Neverwinter Online, Champions Online, and then, Champions Online. And then I worked on Halo, most recently, Halo 5, and then I was working on Infinite until the end of the year. I left that job at 343 to go full time on Song of Iron to finish it out, which is terrifying to do to leave like a really nice comfortable thing and something that I really enjoyed to do this. But Song of Iron is doing really well, and I'm just really excited to get it into people's hands again with a full release this year. So.
Okay, so it was a choice from the beginning. You wanted to make video games, no other choice.
Yeah, pretty much. I always attached to it. Always was an art-minded person, I guess. Tried to be an artist, but animation was the thing that clicked the best, and so yeah, it was just full steam ahead right away.
Okay, and since you are now a developer, has it changed your way of playing? Do you overanalyze everything when you are playing? Do you still have the same joy, or is it more work now than some fun?
Yeah, it depends on the game. I definitely overanalyze everything I play. And the games that like really intrigue me are the ones where I unintentionally don't overanalyze it, where I kind of forget to think about it and I'm just enjoying myself. Most recently, Valheim, excuse me, has been a really great one. That
Okay.
one kind of came out of nowhere, and I mean, obviously it's really popular right now, but it's just like a really fun escape. I also really enjoy competitive games. League of Legends, I played off and on since the beginning. Rocket League, which is almost like the closest to a real sport we've had in the gaming kind of sphere in a certain way, and I really like those sorts of games because they're about more competition against players, and so I think less about the pure game design of them when I'm playing those.
Okay. So you are more on the multi side of
Yeah,
the game.
yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so you've been working at big AAA studios like 343s, etc.
Hmm.
And then you've decided to move into making the game on your own.
Yeah.
Why have you decided that? And why have you decided to make a game alone?
It started. I started working on it when I was at 343. Still, it was just learning Unreal for fun, messing around with that sort of stuff. In a way, Unreal has become like a game for me because it's I don't have to overanalyze it. It's like, what can I do, and how far can I take little ideas for games or whatever. Um, and I started showing it off, and people were responding really well to it, and it just sort of slowly built up on itself, and the project sort of transitioned from a just for fun thing to a this could be like a real project, I think, and maybe a real release. And that just kept building, and then Xbox contacted me, which is what led me to be part of the ID at Xbox program. And it just sort of kept building like that. And then eventually I just made the decision that I wanted to put all of my time into just one thing to be able to concentrate. It was really hard to work, a 40-hour week and then at nights work on Song of Iron and
Yeah.
have like a clear head and have all my creative juices like at 100% and all that kind of stuff. So, um, and it was a mix. It was also like a mix of wanting to give people who have been following me and supporting me just on social media or wherever, kind of the game that they wanted out of Song of Iron, because they had built up kind of excitement for it, and so that made me feel confident to kind of go on my own. And it's so many little things, but yeah, it was a big decision, but I'm excited about it.
When you work like that in those big companies, so
Hmm.
you've been working mainly on animations.
Correct. Yep.
Uh, what's the difference between doing that, where you have just one task or one mission,
Hmm.
and doing something on your own, where you have to do everything? Because we'll see later on that you don't only do the game yourself, you do every other things yourself, which is really amazing.
Yeah. Thanks. It's a lot the same, and it's very different. I think that the thing that stands out to me as the most different is sort of where the ideas come from and then how long that they can stay true to the original concept. It's really hard at a big studio with, hundreds of people to have the director say, I want this to work like this, and then have the managers tell the leads, then the leads tell the animators what they want, and then so there's this game of telephone, and it's just
Yeah.
really hard to keep that all together, right? And working on by myself, my idea telephones right straight to myself, and so there isn't that kind of loss of intent, which you try as much as you can not to do it at any studio, but it does happen. Um, and so I've really enjoyed that, and I hope it comes across in the game as sort of like a pure idea in a way. Um, but then, yeah, there's also a lot of kind of scrambling around. I don't put as much time in the animation as I would like, but I can do animation well pretty fast now. And then so I
Yeah.
have to spend a lot more time on stuff that I don't totally know, which is like coding and effects and all this sort of other stuff that isn't my normal
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, you had to learn all those things, and but hopefully the that's Unreal Engine. You have a lot of tools now that allows you
Yeah.
to do that, like the blueprints and those kind of
Hmm.
things. So that's what you are using to develop, or had you to learn C sharps and those more advanced languages?
No, yeah, I'm using it's all Blueprint based.
Okay.
It's a total like yeah, it wouldn't happen without Blueprint. I don't think Song of Iron definitely wouldn't exist. It's amazing though. I mean, it really lets people like myself, super visual, super kind of artist centric, and but blueprints make sense. There was a learning curve. Obviously, I've learned a ton, and I'm probably still doing things that would make actual, engineers cringe. But I'm doing the best I can with
Yeah,
that. So yeah,
and so far it looks very good.
yeah.
So you had both experiences with big companies and indie game or even solo development.
Hmm.
If you had to list the advantages of one and the disadvantages of the other, what would they be?
I think definitely kind of what I was saying before is a big one. The sort of the purity of an idea, the ability for it to survive the course of development is a really big one. It happens, it works at big studios also, obviously, especially when you have a really strong, good director, it helps a lot. Um, but it's something I've noticed that the smaller the studio, the more everyone gets on board really easily. Everybody can work together to have that one idea drive forward, and that's really really great. Um, I think big studios obviously have the ability not only to produce a ton of content, but they can a game can have just sort of endless amounts of features that you don't really even know unless you dive in. Super fans will always know about all these features that say Halo has. Griffball coming on, all these little like game modes and blah blah blah. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of people to kind of work through all that stuff. And that it's a huge plus to games like that. And for indies, myself, I have a very limited scope, and I can't do a whole ton of stuff based on like the type of game I'm making. So that's definitely like a negative for indie. But it's all just about time. I could keep working and keep working and keep working and add stuff. But um, and then obviously, big games have massive reaches, and I have as much reach as I can shout from my from my room, and hope that people like are interested in what I'm showing, and it kind of goes from there. And that makes it a little tough, and that's why indie notoriously is like a Twitter and sort of social media driven kind of marketing strategies and stuff, and so that can be a little tough. Um, but indie too is we're free from the business side of things a little bit in terms of needing to worry about um, hitting like making up the massive costs that it does cost to make those games, and so we
Yeah.
can we can be more experimental. We can try stuff out. We can do kind of things that seem crazy that you'd never see in a AAA game. Innovate in that way, and I think that's sort of one of the most like the biggest potentials of indie is that sort of out of the box kind of stuff. It doesn't always happen, and that's fine too. But we have the ability to not think the same way in a way, and I think that's great.
Okay, in terms of creativity and agility
Yeah,
and innovation, it's quite different.
yeah.
And since you have been into that experience, have you already considered going back after Song of Iron to those studios, or is it something that you really found the right spot and that's something you want to pursue?
Yeah, I think if I had the choice, I'd still do this. I think the dream situation for me, I think, would be to hire or be part of like a 4 or 5 person team. I
Yeah.
think that it's really fun doing it by myself because there's no one to argue with me. But I still like I need feedback, and it's so much more fun if there was a few people around and we could get excited about a new feature or whatever. Um, and so, if everything goes great, it'd be amazing to have a couple more people on the team together. It'd be really good. But going back to a big studio is not in the plan. I would do it. I still really enjoy it, but being independent is amazing.
And how much time have you worked on the game uh, prior to end of last year?
I started let's see, it would be 2 years total in at the end of July this year. I think would be about I think I started around July of 2019.
Okay.
Um, and that was when I was still kind of dabbling around, and so I wasn't super hard pushing or going in a straight line in any sort of way. But you could, that's a good place to say I started. So
All right.
yeah,
And then you have shown the trailer for the first time at the Game Awards 2020.
there was
What?
we showed it first at the sort of the E3 of last year, which was I think in like June.
Okay.
Um, I was in the ID at Xbox's little montage. There was just like maybe 3 or 4 second clip in there. Um,
Okay.
but the biggest sort of stage it's been on really was the Game Awards. Being part of the festival was really amazing. Yeah.
What has it changed for you in terms of feedback that you have received and the massive number of people that suddenly discovered the game and probably wanted to know more about it?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, there was a lot of really good feedback. One of the negatives again about the indie thing is my own echo chamber about how the game development's going, and so it's amazing to hear where people got stuck or what people liked versus didn't like, and some of it I knew, some of it I guessed but wasn't sure. And some of it was like, how is this a problem? But it is, so I need to like respond to it. And I even did some live updates midway through the demo to see if it would like change how people were responding,
All
and
right.
it did,
Okay.
which is awesome. Yeah, I didn't really say it; I just sort of changed a few things and
Yeah.
see if I was still getting those comments and that kind of stuff. And it's great. I mean, the best way to take feedback always is to sort of listen to it and then interpret it into what you think everyone actually is asking for. Because it's pretty inconsistent that people know exactly what's wrong. But it's great to hear that stuff, and then you kind of collate it all together. I've definitely changed a lot of things. I've committed a lot more time to certain areas. Um, and I learned a lot just getting the demo out and getting it into people's hands and stuff like that, which I've never launched a game, gone through that sort of side of the process. It's just like my animations were done and then I don't have to worry about it before now. So doing that was also really good. Yeah.
Can you explain us a bit what the game is about and how would you describe it?
This is the thing that I'm the worst at, I think, with this part, but I'll do my best. I'd always I always try to show people videos instead of talking about it myself because I end up sounding like I'm describing the most generic Viking fighter there is. But so, the Song of Iron is a Nordic adventure. You are sent on a quest to take a relic that a loved one who's dying gives to you to the top of the mountain where the gods live, so that you can basically ask for their help. And you need this relic to do it. So you're sort of sent off on this quest. It's a puzzler, it's a side scroller, and it's a fighter. I compare it a lot to Inside, which is a huge inspiration for the game. I think they've done an amazing job on that game. And it's just, if Inside was a Nordic fighting game, you'd get Song of Iron. Um, yeah, I think I think people look at it and often think brawler or sort of button masher type fighting, and there's actually I tried to make it a lot more strategic than that. You have to pay attention to what the enemy's doing, um, blocking and dodging attacks, which is pretty common. But the thing that I think sets me apart in the combat realm, for the most part, is that weapons are very sort of temporary. You pick them up, you throw them, you hit people with them, they break. You grab new
Okay.
shields, the shields eventually break. I always describe it as sort of like a barroom brawl where you grab a chair and you break it over someone's back and then you throw the leg that's left over at someone and then
Okay.
you
Yeah.
punch a few people, grab a bottle. It just should be, I want it to feel like this really sort of
The
free
dynamism.
form,
Yeah.
dynamic kind of fighting. Um, and it's just should be fun like that and be sort of really entertaining. And because I'm an animator, I sort of really focus on the combat animation stuff. And I
Yeah.
know that the reaction animations are something that sells good feeling combat a lot. So that's something that I spend a lot of time on. Which in a lot of the videos you see when you shoot someone in the head, there's a really great kind of like flailing thing, and that stuff's always really exciting for me. But and it's also got a really, I think, unique story. I think people will be surprised by it. I'm always very scared to tell too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but um, I really hope people play all the way through because it's going to be. I can't wait to hear what people what
All
people
right.
think. Yeah.
What about the origin of the game? Why doing it into that environment where the idea came from, and has it evolved over time, mainly in terms of the scenario, but also the technical aspects? Was it since the beginning a 2D adventure RPG fight game?
Yeah, I started on a 3D shooter open world game really early on, and
Okay.
I realized pretty fast that I was biting off way more than I could chew. And so but I was really excited about making it. So I really sort of forced myself into a few much more narrow columns, like make a side scroller because it's easier to do all the math. Uh, do this sort of thing, no multiplayer, a few other things like that that really helped narrow down my scope. And from there, I was looking at games like Nidhogg, which is a really great small indie game,
Yeah.
as a great combat, and I kind of started with that. And just a bunch of inspirations all around. Mega Man X to go all the way back to kind of that first game, the way they do the gear in Mega Man X, is sort of like you find the helmet, and once you have the helmet, that's the helmet you're wearing. That's how I do my gear, which is where you get all of your upgrades and sort of level up is through the gear. Um, and it's evolved a bit. It's gotten a little bit more complicated. The scope's gotten a little bit bigger because when I started I was trying to be done in like a few months,
Okay. Yeah.
um, more of an experiment, like let's play with my friends and see how this goes. But um, and in some ways though, it's like always stayed pretty clean because I started with what I thought would be a pretty decent scope and kind of idea. I actually brought the story in from a D&D campaign that like my friend had run.
All
The
right. You're also
character,
role playing.
yeah, yeah, the character I had built for that really like worked really well, and then that the twist that we built into that was like such a great fun thing to do for this, and so I sort of had an idea and a story right from the beginning, and I was able to push towards that the whole time.
Okay. And you mentioned at the beginning that it's a side scroller, but it's not a 2D game. Can you explain a bit
Correct.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're locked to the 2D plane basically. But other than that, beyond that thing, I build all the levels in full 3D. When I'm working in it, I could, in theory, run around like a third-person game in the level. Um, all the characters are three-dimensional, 3D little characters, and a lot of them come from the foreground and from the background to come into the plane to fight you, which is a thing that I love the look of, and I think it feels really cool when you're there. And it's all about trying to be really immersive. Even though it's a 2D side scroller, you can feel, there's something way over there, or like the camera gets really close to something that you can look at and like understand a little bit more about the world and the game because of. Um, and it just gives it a much easier to fall into and believe world, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it gives also that depth of field that we
Yes,
can
big
see on
time.
the screen. So the mountains that we see at the back, they are real mountains.
Yep.
You've made them.
Yeah.
It's not just an image that is scrolling.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. What genre does it fall into? I mean, do because yeah, it's an adventure game, but should we expect a kind of roguelite where we can try again, die and retry, Metroidvania, where we can go back and forth in the map or in the environment? What is to be
Uh,
expected?
I guess I would still classify it closer to an action adventure story
Okay.
game. It is linear. You will go from the beginning and finish the game. There's not really roguelike things in it or Metrovania things. There's a few small little pockets that's like a little tiny Metrovania area where you'll kind of
Hmm.
loop around to solve a puzzle and eventually get out.
Okay.
But for the most part, I mean, it's way more comparable to Journey or Inside or one of those games where you are moving linearly.
Okay. You
Um,
follow the story. You follow
yeah,
the
exactly.
path.
I one of those like pillars for myself was to make a short game also, both because that's a good scope, but also then, I think there's space for games for people to just like sit down in a night and play all the way through and finish a game, and then they can go back to their Assassin's Creeds or whatever other monster game that they're playing. But yeah, this game, hopefully is just sort of play and really enjoy it. I am working on a new game plus mode where you could loop back around and play again with all of your gear, but I mean those are pretty simple.
Okay.
Little extras, yeah.
And will there be any RPG elements in terms of leveling inventory? You said no. You keep the gear that you find on your way. No way to choose.
Yeah, right now the inventory is what you see on your guy, on your character. The axe that's in your hand, the shield, and the bow on your back. And when you throw it, then you don't have it anymore, and you got to go grab another one. You level up by finding the sort of the special gear, the special chest armor, gloves, and stuff like that. But you don't like grab loot off of everybody around you. You have what you have until you find the special one.
Okay. And from what we have seen on the screens, the UI, it's very very simple. It's really focused on the game itself. How will we manage the health of the character? Is there something that will be shown graphically on the screen to see if it's strong or weak or getting close to die or?
Yeah, no. So the only UI is your health, your stamina.
It will be shown.
Yeah, your own health will be shown. It's really small in the bottom corner and it fades if nothing's changed in a little while. I try to keep as much UI off the screen as possible. Yeah. As far as enemies, there's nothing that I think there's nothing so big and strong in that way that you need to know how much health is left. But I just hope that you can manage without it. I really think you can. I think it'll be more of a focus on the character and how they look and everything versus watching that red bar slowly go down to nothing on the top of the screen or whatever. But it also makes everything a little bit of a mystery, and you kind of have to be careful the first time you find something to make sure you're not, jumping into a fight that's going to be tough or easy or whatever it might be.
Okay. And about the weapons, you said that there will be multiple weapons. Will there be some fight without weapons? And can you tell us a bit more about what is to be expected on that side?
Yeah, I've tried to hit the major stuff: one-handed axes, swords, stuff like that. Two-handed axes or weapons. I'm looking to do a big hammer set soon. Spear and shield, kind of classic Nordic fighting stuff. And the whole concept around the weapons is that none of them necessarily are better than any of the others. You might prefer a style, like the way the two-handed axe works versus the one-handed with the shield. But in general, I really don't want you to get too attached to any of them. I want you to use them and spend them to win a fight, and then pick up whatever you want and move on to the next kind of area. And so all of the bonuses are going to be in that gear. Like in the trailer, we see the fire axe and the lightning arrows. That's all based on the gauntlets that you found, not the actual weapons themselves. And so what that means is that any weapon you pick up can become a flaming version of itself once you've got that piece of gear, which I think is really fun because it lets the magic sort of be wherever I want it to be, and not just, I don't have to worry about chasing down the fire axe or anything like that. I just pick something else up and light it on fire.
Yeah, that sounds really great. About the character creation, for the moment we have seen only one character. Will there be any customization options for the character?
I'm trying to decide if I want to do anything. So right now you can play as a male or female warrior. I have recently added the female warrior, which is really cool. I'm excited about it. But technically there's no major customization. You're not doing any face stuff. I'm trying to decide if I want to just set your shield to like something that you can pick, or if you pick up exactly what was dropped. But for the most part, it's another one of those little scope things. It's like, here's the character. I hope you'll pick them,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And you said as well that it's not only a fighting game; it's also a puzzle game.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's nothing's gonna like really confuse you or be any big stumpers, I don't think. But it's nice, I think, to take a break from the fighting and need to look around and need to look at the environment and understand and do something other than just beating people up all the way through. So there's some cool ones, some stuff that's interesting, and there's a little bit of platforming mixed in with the. I kind of like classify that with the puzzles a little. Um, and a little bit of that stuff. So yeah, I think that's cool.
and about the story, you said already a bit about it, but not too much. Will there be any dialogues or story that is told, or how will you manage that?
Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of dialogue. It's going to all be done with text on screen and some voice acting on top of it, but that will be more of a gibberish, fake kind of language. Um, but yeah, and it's really. I mean, I'm doing my best to tell the story through the environment most of the time, and then there's the
Okay.
few little kind of kicks in the butt to the story to keep it going or to help explain something that's not super easy to visually show. Um, but it's really small, and it should just kind of keep you going, keep you understanding what's happening, and go from there. But there is dialogue with multiple characters.
There is one aspect of the game that we haven't really talked about yet,
Hmm.
and not really seen so much. It's the sound design. I've seen on your Twitter account you have posted some examples of what is to be expected. Can you a bit explain how you managed to make the sound design for the game, the music, etc.?
Yeah, so that's the sound and the music is the one place where I've decided to have someone else help me. That's definitely my weakest area. I'm as tone deaf as it comes, and I couldn't tell you, uh, I couldn't tell you good from bad unless someone was standing over my shoulder. So, the composer is Will Ghost. He's doing an
Okay.
amazing job. Like you said you saw some of the Twitter stuff.
Yeah.
He's been working on that. He actually is. In the trailer, the music in the trailer was by him also, and he's the vocal track in that as well, which
Okay.
is really exciting. Which is a huge reason that I was excited to work with him. And we've been working really closely. And I want it to be as Nordic heavy and sort of that heavy duty warrior kind of vibe as we can, and get that mood and stuff across. So we've been working really hard to do that. We bought a tagla harpa, which is a very sort of an instrument of that area, which you'll know the sound the second you hear it as a Viking music sound, as that kind of like that kind of area. And it's already helping a ton that we've got that. So I'm very excited about it. Um, and then sound design is also being done by Strikecast Audio, which is just a small sort of indie game audio group that helps out indie games, and they've
Hmm.
also been doing a really good job with all that sort of stuff. Um, the idea and the sort of the driving force for me, like what I want out of all that, is just for it to be immersive and for everything to serve the player by giving them information they need or helping immerse them more into the world. So um, yeah, I don't know, but I'm very excited about where it's going right now. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you make them work on the game? Do you give them a build of the game or the demo or some so that they can play and feel it before sending you back the music they think that would fit on it?
Yeah, so with the sound design group, Strikecast, we've set up a source depot, and they've actually got the full build. They can go in and edit, and they're helping me kind of implement some of that. And then with Will, I've been sending him recordings of me playing through, and then he gets a build every once in a while when I've got sort of a good chunk of playable stuff, and then so he can play through when he wants to see all that stuff going. But it's a lot of like recordings of huge chunks, couple like an hour long chunk of the game, and then he can throw his music on just to see how it's feeling and stuff like that. And then there's
Okay.
we have a Discord channel just for it where we're talking a bunch, and I'm sending them clips of stuff I'm working on and all that kind of thing.
And more on the technical side, what are the target frame rate and resolution that you are planning to?
For Xbox Series X, I'm going for 4K at 60. I believe I can hit that. I think I did hit it for the demo, so I should be able to manage that across the full game. I think it's probably like 1080 30 on the original Xbox or the X1 through the XX, something around those. I'm not sure about the S yet, but hopefully it'd be somewhere in the middle there, 60 at 440 or 1440 or something. Um, but I'm not sure yet. I don't want to promise something that doesn't happen, but that's the goal.
Yeah.
And then PC, I mean, depending on the area in the game I'm at, my computer's been doing 120 at 4K in certain areas.
Okay.
But I mean, I have a pretty decent computer, which helps. But
Yeah.
the hope is that it's not a major resource hog, and that it can run pretty well for everybody. Yeah.
Okay. What's the expected lifetime of the game?
Like playtime.
Yes, playtime.
I'm hoping that people who rush through it get a solid 2 hours, and then people who take their time a little bit more would get closer to 3.5 hours in one playthrough. Yeah.
So about the demo, because demo
Yeah.
was, as you said, a very good way of getting the feedback of the players. According to you, was it successful in terms of players? You know how many players have played the demo?
Yeah, I think let's see, number wise, it's hard to share because of some NDA stuff, but I felt really good about it. I was lucky enough because I was part of the Xbox Site ID program that I was on the front page of the store on Xbox for a couple hours, which
Okay.
of course is going to help shed a light on it because everyone's going to see it as a free thing to try out. But from an indie solo perspective, if I can do that again in the span I did for the demo, I will be a very happy person.
Okay.
And and that was like a surprise too. That was sort of the day of the demo that got announced. So with release, I should be able to build up a lot more too. So
And on top of that, you have your YouTube channel. You have set up a Discord, I think, in order to get the feedback. So I've seen that. Yeah, you publish quite a lot of things there. And as you mentioned, also your YouTube channel has a bit evolved in the sense that you were also providing some videos that explain how to develop, basically.
yeah.
So please.
Yeah, I really like doing that. I think, I wouldn't be able to do what I've done if I couldn't go to somebody's channel and look something up or be told how something works. And so, most of the channel's sort of how-to stuff revolves around animation because that's the thing that I'm the most confident in, and I feel like I can, with authority, kind of speak to it. But I love sharing the knowledge. I think it only, all ships rise with the tide or whatever. So I really enjoy it. I've been much slower to get that content out recently as I'm sort of see the end of Song of Iron development in sight. And so I'm just trying to zone in on that. But
Okay.
I'm hoping to at least show more updates on the YouTube channel along with maybe a video before launch. But I don't want to promise anything because it just that scope gets narrower and narrower. And
Yeah.
I get more and more worried about, hitting all my little dates, my personal dates and stuff. So, but definitely we'll come back to it as well, the tutorial side stuff. But yeah, there, and then Twitter's where I post the most often with my, sort of like a weekly update. And that's, again, I try to show behind the scenes stuff because I think it's fun. I always loved it when I was younger, seeing anything that wasn't directly kind of like marketing stuff. I wanted to see the polys and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really fun.
The game is not released yet, but if we already looked a bit in the mirror, what have been the biggest challenges for you in developing that game?
I think the hardest things have all come from outside the sort of the classical development side of stuff. I've had to just needing to deal with the legal side of things, or marketing is really difficult. Marketing with a $0 budget, it's an interesting thing. It's very cool, but it's very hard, and I still don't know if I'm doing it totally wrong or right a little bit, or it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Um, for the game itself, I think the hardest stuff has been some of the systems like climbing it remains a major challenge. There's so many little things that happen. It's like, okay, when you jump, when you do this, when you do that, there's all this stuff that happens around it, and then a system that worked great until you realize you could jump. Sort of, then you have to rewrite the system again, and oh no, what if you get hit? Okay, well, I better I
Yeah.
better add that in, and it's crazy how complicated some seemingly simple things can be, and it's been really fun to find those and to work on them. But every once in a while, when I go back for my third rewrite of something, it's like, okay, this is the time, we'll do it right. Um, yeah, so it's a mix of stuff, but it's all been pretty fun. I think the scariest things are like the legal side of stuff and making sure I do all of those legal obligations correctly, and I don't,
Yeah.
really mess something up. That's sort of my fear all the time. But yeah, otherwise, everything, hard or not, has been really fun.
Okay. And if you had to give an advice to someone who wants to start developing and wants to start developing as a solo developer, what would be that advice?
For someone just starting, like never really worked in
Yeah.
games before, I really suggest thinking of it like any trade. You need to practice. If you're playing basketball, you do layups before the game. You practice and practice and practice. Game Jam's really good for that, but also, crack open Unreal and try to remake Asteroids or some of these more simple classic games. We know what, you can break those down to a few questions, so you can find the answers, and then you can recreate it. That's going to give you a base of knowledge that you can build upon for your next test game, and your next test game, and your next test game. The biggest mistakes I think people make, and I've done it too with the shooter open world crazy thing I was trying, is you have a huge game idea, you get 2 months in, realize how big it is, get instantly sort of discouraged from it, or you run into one little wall that stops you and you get discouraged, and then poof, all that inspiration and momentum's gone, and you want to do everything you can to avoid that. And that comes with practice and sort of commitment to a thing, and understanding that inspiration doesn't fuel game development. Inspiration gives you bursts, but you need to be sort of, you have to train yourself to work through that stuff. So it sounds like really bad, but it's really fun. And so yeah, those are the things that people will trip on early, I think.
Okay. So maybe get some experience, start small,
Yeah.
don't make
Yeah, and
things too big.
if you work on those little projects, little tests, then you can, if something's not working, you just throw it out and don't, But if you start on this huge project, your passion thing, and then it's like not working out, it's going to be so hard to start over or change it. So it's so much easier to do it the other way.
When I was doing my homework and preparing this interview, I was really surprised by one thing, is that you decided to publish the game yourself. Because I've been talking to many developers, and for them, the help of a publisher was really a great help for all the stuff that is around development. Why have you chosen to do it yourself?
Um, it's a good question, and there's a world where I didn't do that, and I probably would have been in a similar situation or slightly different. I think, well, first, I got really lucky that when one of my posts on Reddit did really well, Xbox found it and reached out to me through the ID program, and so they're in a way a pseudo publisher. We're connected a little bit, and so they definitely help a lot. And that's been a big influence on me not having a publisher. But I I never loved the deals that the publishers had, and having never been, I don't have a game. I don't know. I assume my numbers are going to be small because it's better, it's safer that way to assume the numbers are going to be small. So when we talk deals with them, when I talk deals with them, it never really added up for me because it takes a big percentage, and so it's scary to see how those things line up. All of a sudden, what was all yours becomes barely yours in a way, and theoretically they pay for themselves by doubling or tripling the success, and then everything works out. But I didn't know, and so I just sort of always felt safer staying with myself. And we'll see if that was a good choice or not soon enough. But yeah, I think too, it's just understanding the game the publishers are playing and understanding where, what their hopes are and that they're trying to make profit also and blah, blah, blah. And it can be scary. Like part of it was fear, it's like, do I want to sign away all this control or whatever? And so some of it was that wanting to do it by myself and get through that. So yeah. And that's not to say that publishers aren't good, because many of them are great. Devolver is one that I've only ever heard good things from people about, that they, kind of like getting grabbed by them as life-changing as being a success. So there's a lot of that.
Okay. And technically, it's possible to do it without a publisher.
Yeah,
to publish on
absolutely.
Xbox and on PC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think I had to technically start a business. I have an LLC now, but that's as far as it was required. Yeah.
As you will be the publisher, you will decide yourself the price. Do you already have the price in mind, or more or less?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of looking at the $20 range right now. I think it's a tough one because games range. They're so, it's like the scariest thing to put a number on. I usually ask people a lot, and on posts where people are asking me, I say, "What do you think it should be?" And honestly, I put a lot of weight in that because they're looking at a really quick little thing and thinking that they'd want to pay a decent amount for it or whatever, and then also, yeah, the hope would be to survive and be able to do, stay independent. So, yeah, I'm kind of in that $20 range. I haven't locked it super solid yet, but there should be more news on that soon, I think. But that's about where I'm feeling.
Okay. And talking about news, the release date?
Not yet. That'll come.
Not yet.
Yeah, that one's a tough one because I don't want. The last thing I want to do is say something and then be wrong. And so realistically, that won't come until like a month out, I think, when I'm super confident this is exactly when I can be done and ready for everybody. That said, I don't think it's going to be too far away. I definitely don't, it will not be next year. It's going to be this year, barring any sort of catastrophe. I'll let people know as soon as I can. But the last thing I want to do is to need to break a promise or something. So
yeah, or to release it too early to stay with the promise. We have seen recently that it can have very bad
on
impact.
Both sides.
Yeah. And to make sure that it's ready and good and playable, how do you cope with the playtesting? Do you have people testing the game and providing you feedback on top of what you receive with the demo already?
Yeah, the demo was a big one. I collected tons of stuff, and I've been working through that list. I have friends from the industry and just from around that I send builds to every once in a while, which is really helpful. But they're always, no matter how hard they try, they're going to be looking through either a developer lens or a friend lens. And so I do want to have a really limited sort of alpha test at some point. I haven't organized that just yet, but it will be good to get fresh eyes and sort of unassuming gamers to check it out and let me know what they think. So, but that's about as much information as there is on that. Even if I wanted to tell you more, that's about all I got. Okay. But yeah, there is hopefully some more testing to come.
And on Xbox, you also intend to have it smart delivery and use the latest functionalities like running on xCloud or Xbox Stream.
Yeah, I think they've changed it. That is totally the intent. I don't know if every one of those will come at launch, but it'll definitely be one of those things I build in as we go. I mean, I love the idea of it being on streaming for people to play on whatever device. I think that's super cool. And then, the cloud saves where they could go from one device to another and just pick right up where they are. I think that's all awesome. So everything I can do for launch, I will, and everything that I'm not quite there yet, I definitely intend to bring it.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very good candidate to play even on the go with
Yeah, I think so.
with on the smartphone or so.
Yeah, I think
Should
so.
be a very good one. And you have decided to go exclusive with Xbox and Steam. That's it.
Correct. Yeah, Xbox and
Um,
Steam.
what is the motivation to go exclusive? Because as a solo developer, you might the basic thinking is that you might reach less people, but maybe
Right.
you have some counterparts like the support or I don't know.
Yeah, so the support is a major factor, and because with that exclusivity with Xbox, I've gained being part of the ID program, which is what got me onto the into the ID montage, which is where like more people saw me, and so there's sort of like an unspoken marketing arm of Xbox where they just mention games or this or that, and then you kind of get thrown into that, and so. I think, before Xbox came along, I only envisioned Steam because it's
Okay.
the easy thing to get to. And
Yeah.
so there's a part of me which just says Xbox is this huge bonus that I'm lucky enough to have been sort of invited to be part of, and that I don't really expect to have been on any of them otherwise. Um, that has kind of given me bigger eyes, and so I've tried to make a bigger game. And so it'd be awesome to be on all platforms, but it's also going to be really nice to focus because each platform requires a ton of additional work.
Yeah.
And so there's a scope thing there too, and it's like I can do two. I think I can manage that. Um, so yeah, even without the exclusivity deal or anything like that, I doubt I'd be on. I'd probably be on less platforms, not more.
Okay. And about ID at Xbox, as you mentioned, can you explain more in details what types of support they give in that program?
Yeah, I mean, so that program in general is the path for indie developers to get onto Xbox, and
Yeah.
I you don't have to be part of ID at Xbox to get your indie game in, but you go through their program. I basically was like invited to join type thing, and so there was I mean, there's support where I've gotten dev kits through that directly from them. I've obviously been shown in shows, which has been great. Um, and then anytime, I mean, again, like they write letters about indie games coming, and I get on there once in a while, and that's
Okay.
fantastic. But also just, and I would imagine they give this support to basically any indie dev going through the system. But the support of getting getting builds to the box and all the stuff that is around that is just amazing. It's super reactive and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's the best of both worlds between a publisher and a console, and I could hardly ask for more.
Okay.
Especially
Yeah.
because I can still launch on Steam, which is sort of unexpected in a wonderful way. So
Okay. And at Xbox for the moment, enfin, for a couple of years already, there is something that is really big at the moment and really in the news is the Xbox Game Pass. You have 15 years of experience making games, so you have seen the transition. What is your take on those new ways of consuming video games?
I mean, from just the straight view of it, I think it's awesome. I mean, it allows more people to play more games, right? And what Netflix did for movies and TV, I think, is a good thing. I think we've only gotten more good content and more good programming from it. And so I think it's going to be the same for games as it gets more widely adopted. Um, Thinking of when I was buying my first games and they were $60, and basically any game you wanted was $60. That meant like one game every couple months as a kid, and you had to mow lawns or do whatever kind of thing to get a couple bucks here and there. And the idea that for $10 a month or whatever it is, $50, I could play any game that I want or near any game I want. I mean, that's amazing. Um, Yeah, what I don't know yet is like how that impacts developers, especially like indie developers, what that really means for them. But since Unreal, the Epic Store is doing a similar-ish thing, like they give away a ton of games. It's a different system, but similar idea. Um, those developers seem to be doing really well because they pay them they give them success right away up front in order to give away their game for free. How much that is, I don't know, and that does have a ceiling on it in theory because maybe your game sells 20 million copies and you only you guessed 50,000 and now
Yeah,
you know
maybe.
like and so you have this sort of like ceiling risk potentially, but that doesn't stop people from buying it, and and people do still buy Game Pass games because not everybody's on there. So
No,
yeah,
that's
I
true. That's true.
generally I think it's a good thing. I would love to see some contracts to know how it affects the studios, but um,
I think everybody
yeah,
wants to see those
yeah,
contracts.
yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that. I hope it's working for everybody, and if not, then it should be adjusted a little bit so that everybody can be happy doing it. But
Yeah. Now,
yeah,
what's interesting with that is that we cannot really see it as it's either Game Pass or either selling the game, because having them in Game Pass with the visibility that it's giving, it has a lot of
yeah,
impacts, and a lot of people not having Game Pass know about the game because everybody talks about those games, those yeah, normally I say 5 to 10 games, but this month it went crazy with I don't know
yeah.
how many games they
However
released,
many, yeah.
and
Just keep adding.
yeah, they keep
Yeah,
on doing it.
it would be a mistake to look at post Game Pass numbers and say, well, if I had just sold that many, I'd be this much, I'd have made this much money. And Game Pass is going to invite in a massive amount of, players. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, we'll see. Maybe one day Song of Iron will make it, and then
yeah, that's
I can tell you that I'm under NDA and I can't say anything anyway, and then we can continue wondering. But yeah, yeah. I think in general, though, I think it's a good thing. So yeah,
and more in general, because you are quite close to the Xbox family, I would say, because of your work at 343
hmm
and those kind of thing. What do you think of their move on this generation? They have been buying so many big studios, huge studios, and do you think it's a good thing?
yeah. It's a tough one. I think Xbox and Microsoft in general's sort of core drive right now is really strong. I think it makes sense. I think it's really pro consumer, assuming that there's not some nefarious thing that I don't know about happening. But it's all about giving more access to more people, which is why Game Pass is so great. The idea that you could through Game Pass rent a system that eventually becomes yours. It's just, I mean, they're really just trying to broaden accessibility, which is awesome. I think acquiring half the world's studios, which is not quite what they did, but it feels very impactful like that. It's it's obviously good business for them to spend $8 billion. I mean, I assume that they've made some wise choices. I think it's okay. There's so many studios out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't, it's not like that they've stopped PlayStation from having games or something, right? Um, Whether or not like it gets worse and they do buy half the world studios, I don't think they're going to do that. But yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, it gives these big studios more runway and more time to make games. I think as long as they leave what was working the best in those studios alone, which my experience is that they will. 343 barely felt like it was part of Microsoft, or like there was no machine like leaning on us. We felt like a studio that just did whatever it thought was best. As long as that's true for everybody else, I think it's just a good thing. It should just mean more good games for people.
Yeah, so good transitions for me because we talk about the Game Pass, and one of the advantage of the Game Pass is also to allow the developers to sell DLCs and add-ons, etc. What are the plans for the future for you and for the game after it's released? Do you already have something in mind for additional content?
I definitely do. I have a grand plan, if you will, assuming this goes well. But I think it's going to be more traditional in a way. Like I intend to get this out, support it as far as like making sure it's working really well for anybody who's having trouble or whatever it might be. And then I want to move on to the next chapter of the Song of Iron story. I'm really excited about it because it's very interesting, and I really want to know what people think about the end of this one, because it's really going to make my mind up about how to proceed. But I definitely
next
want
chapter in the sense of a sequel or
sequel. Yeah, that would be the hope. Would be if everything goes great, sequels. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's small enough that I don't think DLC is necessarily the path, other than like small, really kind of just for fun sort of things. But my mind is definitely getting this one and then moving on to part 2, basically, sequel. Yeah, yeah. I've got a big story, and this is just a small piece of it. So hopefully, hopefully I get the opportunity to do the
you
whole
have a
thing,
master plan.
Yeah,
so you know
yeah.
exactly where you want to go. That's great.
Yeah.
So that's really good. So frankly, with everything that we have seen about it, I'm really excited to play this game. Hopefully it will be soon. So thank you a lot for your time. It was really great, really interesting. If you want to, do you want to say something to the future player about the game? How would you convince them to try out Song of Iron?
Yeah. Again, it's here. Watch some videos of it, and no, I think I've been playing games for a really long time. This game to me is sort of a love letter to the games of the Super Nintendo era, the great side scrollers of that era, just brought into with the technology we have now, with the sort of knowledge about games we have now, along with the mood and atmosphere that some of those visuals can bring. And I really want this game to be an experience more than a fighter or an adventure game. I want people to walk away with a few really awesome moments that they didn't expect. And I think this game is going to deliver that for a lot of people. Anyone who gives it a chance, I think will really enjoy it. And because I have only been an animator before, my brain is set to give really appealing moments and really like appeal. That's how animation works. And so I've just put that into every aspect I could, from the design to the art to the animations themselves. And so I think there is something unique about the game that is hard to describe. It's because it's all from one brain, and that brain is an animator brain. And that's going to happen with any indie that's coming from different parts. But I think it definitely is going to be sort of an unexpected slight shift in how most games play. So good or bad, we'll find out. I think it's good. I still enjoy playing, and I've played a lot. I still have great moments, right? I kind of laugh at a fun thing, and I've done it 1,000 times now. But yeah.
Great. So you've convinced me even more than before with that. So I hope it will be the same for everyone. And for the ones who wants to follow your work and see the updates on Song of Iron, where can they find you on the internet?
The best place is Twitter at Song of Iron. That's where most of my posts happen. I do have a YouTube and Instagram if you prefer those, and there's a Facebook that just got kicked up. But everything should be searchable on Song of Iron. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Joe, thanks a lot for your time and your availability.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you have many things to do today. And for everyone, I just remind you that Song of Iron looks an amazing game. It will be released very soon, very soon. And Joe, thank you again, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you. Bye.